See, community is what makes or breaks a game, right? At the end of the day, you are making a game for the audience. If they don't like it, if they don't support it, then nobody. It doesn't matter. It might so happen that you might fail on your first game. It might so happen you fail on your 9th, 10th, 13th game, or even 51st game. But maybe your 52nd game, as was Rovio's Angry Birds, can become a success. Something that game designers always struggle with, which is to get that one single core mechanic right.
Hi, I am Muskan Behune and welcome to this episode of the Ungyaan podcast by Arena Animation, जहाँ पे हम बातें करेंगे about the dynamic world of gaming, animation, VFX and extended reality, where we build genuine connections with our guests and avoid the pitfalls of preachiness. Our conversations are going to bring you unique perspectives and experiences from this vibrant industry. From storytelling to character design, let us explore the various processes behind the magic. In this episode, we have Nikhil Malankar, CEO of GameEon Studios, a lifelong gamer and creator. Nikhil turned his childhood passion for gaming into a thriving career. He's also a YouTuber sharing insights into the game development world, offering guidance and inspiration to aspiring developers. With a mission to demystify this booming industry, Nikhil brings invaluable experience, passion, and vision to this conversation. Hi, Nikhil.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Ungyaan podcast by Arena Animation. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, and thanks a lot to Arena for organizing such a wonderful podcast. Hopefully, this is valuable for the students and anyone who watches it.
Definitely, and it's our pleasure that we got your time.
Yeah.
So, I want to jump right into the conversation already.
Yeah.
But then, before that, I just want to ask you one question that we're going to talk about the gaming industry, gamers, game development. So, what's the biggest myth you've heard about the gaming industry, and if you'd like to debunk it right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's this one myth which is still true to this date. Is if you Google search this term, how much time did it take to make Minecraft? It says 6 days. While that is not true at all, while Minecraft, the base version, was made in 6 days, but it was an ongoing project, and even to this date, Minecraft is still under development after being acquired by Microsoft as well. So that is just one small myth that a lot of people think that a game like Minecraft can be made in 6 days. The base version can be, but to maintain it, it's a long process.
But they're still developing it now.
Yeah, there's new content being added every single day. More like a procedurally generated map over there in that game, and everything basically like depends on how players play and shape up their worlds. Minecraft is a beautiful game.
That's super interesting. Even I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah.
But if we talk about the gaming industry, how do you think the Indian gaming industry is doing right now compared to the global markets? What's your take on
I
it?
think we started out pretty late to the scene, but we had our foothold back in the industry by servicing the likes of bigger games. So we had studios like Dhruva Interactive, which were pivotal in contributing to assets in worldwide games. We also had some early companies like Nazara Technologies and Games to Win back in the day, having made some really wonderful games. But we were more focused on the servicing side and mobile games. Now, recently, after 2017, there has been a huge influx of games being focused on hardcore PC and console market. Raji was one great success in that category, and there were also a couple of games like Asura and a few other mobile successes as well. I would regard Ludo King as well as one of the biggest successes because everyone and their grandmas and their grandpas and their friends were playing Ludo back in the pandemic days, right? But of course, it was popular before that as well. And now, recently, new studios have started taking bigger risks because there is now the introduction of venture capital and global publishers taking interest. Sony also recently announced and finalized their first cohort of 5 studios, which they will be supporting throughout their entire development process. It was called as the India Hero Project. And not just that, but there are also a couple of investors who are interested in this space. I'm also running a studio called GameEon Studios. We are working on this game called Mumbai Gullies. We are also, investor-backed company. So I think India is moving in a very fast and rapid direction. There's one statement that I want to make, like India in most of the times arrives late, but when we arrive, we arrive. and that
Oh,
is apparent
that,
with
yeah.
everything. Like
So
even
true.
if you look at UPI,
Yes.
nowadays I don't carry cash, and I'm sure most of
No
people
one
don't carry
does.
cash.
Yeah.
Carry cash. So that marriage of technology with such a simple concept is and its widespread adoptability happens only in India. So yeah.
So true. But how did you get into gaming? Were you always fond of games since you were a kid? You always wanted to become a game designer?
Yeah,
What was the
so
background?
my story really started when I was a 3-year-old kid. So I remember back in the day, my dad had bought a new computer at our place, and it had multiple softwares and one game, and that game was Doom. So my dad, he used to introduce me to the world of computers. That hey, look at this. This is Word. This is Excel. And then he showed me this game called Doom, which became the doom of my life, as per my mom. So I started playing video games very early on. Played all the classics. We also had a small console, NES console back then. So I played the likes of Mario, Road Rash, Midtown Madness on all the classic games. And eventually, one fine day, after in about 2009, I finally managed to get my PC to run GTA Vice City, because back then getting to run these games was a huge deal. And I was instantly hooked onto it. So I used to invest, I don't know, I say invest, I don't say waste. I used to invest 6 to 8 hours a day of my life playing GTA Vice City, which actually was my motivation to get into game development. I was playing this game and I started tinkering around with the game's code. I started modifying the textures, and I kind of made it look like the city of Mumbai. Basically just a hobby, but one fine day a friend of mine came over at my place and I showed him this game just as a time pass. And he asked me a question which became the purpose of my life. The question was, if you can do this, if you can modify a game and make it look like the city of Mumbai, then why not make a game on Mumbai by yourself?
Oh, that's
So
how the idea came.
yeah, that's how the idea came.
Lovely. And now there are billions of gamers like you who are getting into games and who are just finding their own interests
Yeah.
now. Because of this, we are in need of more game designers right now.
Yeah.
And how's that progressing?
So there are two parts of it, right? One is the part wherein we see other people play games and they making a career out of it, and then there's the other part that wants to do a deep dive into learning game development. Now, fortunately, because of our population, there is interest across all sorts of variety, and institutes like Arena and others are doing their bit to actually educate students who want to get into this field. So, not just game design, we also have people who are interested in game programming, game art, and right now is probably the best time to explore a career in game development, primarily because now you have infrastructure that matches the quality of global standards. Today we have access to the same set of tools that someone in the Western markets sits and has, right? So I think this is a really good time to get started, especially for not just game development but also gamers. I mean, we've seen the likes of Carrie Minati or Mortal or Tanmay Bhatt as well,
Yeah.
doing a lot of gameplay streams and earning lakhs and crores, right? So I think this is the best time to get started.
And our team did a little research and we found out that there are around 3 billion video gamers in the world and around 2.8 billion video games. And even after seeing such stats, creating games is still not considered a serious job. How content creation or being an influencer wasn't considered a serious job till few years back. So, why do you think is that? And how can we educate people to understand that no, this is a serious job also?
I think it is to do with the education system. The way that we are taught to do Pythagoras theorem and not taxes, early on in our life is what becomes detrimental to our future. So what I genuinely think is that gaming, being such a lucrative field, but it's not being taught in our curriculum. I mean, we should definitely have one lecture, probably once a week, that talks about gaming, and from very early stages, because A, there is lack of awareness from parent side. B, there is a lot of misinformation being spread out. There is the stigma of addiction to games, but addiction can be for anything. Anything in excess can be addictive, and anything done in moderate quantities can be useful to you. So I think the entire problem stems from the fact that we have not introduced gaming as a subject, or at least the awareness in our school curriculum. That's where it should start. It shouldn't be the case that you're just attaching a stigma to it, because it is very much contributing to the economy as well. Games as a medium, if you look at media standpoint, right? Games is the largest shareholder in that entire segment. Some games even earn more than movies. So there's this game called Grand Theft Auto 5, which was the last installment of GTA, and everyone is waiting for GTA 6 now. But GTA 5 was the game that was responsible to shatter records. The game earned about more than $1 billion in revenue on day 2 of its launch. And then if you were to talk about money in India, we have Nazara Technologies, which is India's gaming company, which is the only Indian gaming company listed on the stock exchange of our national stock exchange in India, right? So money certainly is there. What parents don't know is that the money is there, and that's the entire problem that stems from it. So if we are able to educate our parents saying that, okay, this is also a viable field, then that problem itself will not occur.
And I also want to understand that if someone wants to get into game designing or game development, is it compulsory for them to get a college degree, or how do they exactly go about it? What's the procedure if you have to explain it to a layman?
So it really depends on, as of now, I would say parental support. How willing are your parents to support you on this journey? If they are, then I would definitely say that joining an institute is a good option. In India right now, the infrastructure is just on the cusp of development. So there are few institutes, there are few good institutes that you can enroll. Or as of this moment, there are some institutes abroad as well that they can explore. But of course, that becomes a very costly affair. So what I would recommend is the safest strategy is that will be also appealing to the parents is you do whatever you want to do, whatever they have recommended you to do, like your BCom degree or a BTech degree or engineering or anything, a bachelor's degree, right? Do that, because during your college, you admit it or not, you will get a lot of time, because college curriculum almost everyone manages. And on the side, you start picking up these skills. So let's say if it's game design, then game design is to do with logical thinking and your usage of multiple tools, documentation tools. So observe, play games, write down what makes them fun to play. If you want to learn game programming, then there are tools like Unity Game Engine or Unreal Engine. Pick up a game engine, learn a programming language. If you want to become an artist, identify what kind of artist do you want to become. Do you want to become a 3D artist or a 2D artist? And then relevant to those, start picking up those softwares. So for 2D, you've got Photoshop or GIMP. For 3D, you've got Autodesk, 3ds Max, Maya, or Blender, right? And of course, Arena is here to help you out through micro courses as well. So that is something that you can definitely pursue on the side. And it's all about practice at the end of the day. To answer your question, no, a college degree does not matter. A lot of studios that hire nowadays, they don't even look at your qualifications. They look at what work have you done. Even as an intern, they look at what pulls you to this field, right? Even though you're starting at an intern level, have you done your research? Do you know what Unity is? Nobody wants to sit down and teach you step by step, right? So you need to have that fascination towards this field and that bit of technical awareness on what softwares to use and just dedication. It's all about dedication. There's no shortcut to it. If you have to pick up a skill and it's going to take you some time, it is going to take that time. But now, because of these AI tools, things have become relatively faster. So something that you could learn in 2 months, now it takes you like 2 to 3 weeks time.
Yes. It is more about the skills that you bring to the table than the course or any degree. But how has it been for you? Did you go for a traditional degree, or were you a self-learner?
So I practice what I preached just now. So to make my parents happy, I was enrolled in an engineering college. So I did that, and on the side, I started learning about how these engines work, how art softwares work and all. But eventually, my inclination was more towards the programming side. So I then started giving in hours, sitting on the computer till 3, 4 a.m. or whatever, like losing track of time. And just pure experimentation. It was like, I feel a bit jealous nowadays that students today have access to so many resources. Back in my times, I'm saying that I feel like a dinosaur. But back in my times when I started out, there was no chat GPT, there were no proper documentation, there were not a lot of tutorials available. So we had to scratch our hair every time to whenever we used to get stuck. But yeah, I think now is a good time to get started, and yeah, that was my journey. We went through that hard work, but yeah, I think
Now
it's
you're
worth
here,
it.
yeah.
Worth it.
And there are also different genres in gaming. So, if I have to give you an example, companies like EA focus more on sports games.
Yeah.
What are you focusing on, and if there's any reason behind you focusing on a specific genre in gaming?
So we are currently focusing on action genre, and that's just the theme of our game Mumbai Gullies. The reason why we are doing is because we are very passionate about this subject. We want to put Mumbai on the global scale, because Mumbai is a very it's a metropolitan city, and it is the second city next to New York that is also called as a city of dreams and the city that never sleeps. So that is what we are aiming for, and Mumbai has a lot of action around, right from your local trains to your rickshaw or rickshaw walas. Even hailing a rickshaw is a mission, right? To face those umpteen amount of rejections,
Yeah.
that's just next
In your
level.
day-to-day life.
In your day-to-day life. So that's the genre that we are sticking to, and we are very passionate about. On the global scale, I think action works best, even shooting games, right? Like you have got your Call of Duties of the world, even PUBGs or BGMI, they are doing really well. This is the new battle royale genre that has caught attention. But yeah, I think action and racing, these two are the genres that genuinely work well in this space.
So, and action and racing are also the genres that you think will dominate the future in the next 10 years?
Yeah, but there is also, I say this with a pinch of salt, because it might so happen that there might be a new genre that people might uncover. Like for example, about a decade ago, nobody thought that battle royale would be a thing, and now we have got all these Fortnite and BGMI, Valorant ruling. Valorant is still not battle royale; it's more co-op. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
So these two are the genres that you think will,
Yeah.
for now, dominate the future. How do you think having a gaming community is important for a game's success? Because there are so many gaming influencers who have their own communities. So how does that help for a game to be successful, in your opinion?
The community is what makes or breaks a game, right? At the end of the day, you are making a game for the audience. If they don't like it, if they don't support it, then nobody. It doesn't matter. No amount of advertising, nothing can save your game. So if you are looking at building a community, start at the very beginning. Start as fast as you can, because it is going to take you considerable amount of time to finish the game. So the way that we did it was that when we had this idea, we thought that let's just see if people want to play this game or not, right? Like for me, making a game based on the city of Mumbai sounds exciting, right?
Yeah.
Everyone likes their own ideas, but is that idea viable as a business, as prospective game? So we created a trailer, we put it up on YouTube, and suddenly it was accepted by a lot of people. A lot of people started commenting. So that's what validated the idea for us. And eventually, because of that, we were also able to show this data to investors that, hey, look at this. We have created this community. There are so many people waiting for this game. So that helped us validate the idea of the game. And that is all thanks to the community that made this possible. So building a community for your game ensures that you have a healthy audience that is waiting for your game, and it will also help you get an estimation that should you invest your time building this or not, because
Yeah,
if you don't get a community, then it's not worth it.
Yeah. And when it comes to advertising, do you think working with an influencer who has his or her own community gives better results than traditional forms of advertising?
So for influencer marketing, what we have observed doing some experimentations in the past, as well as some data from partner studios, is that influencer marketing is good in terms of just having a brand value, but from a conversion perspective, still the traditional ways of advertising work, like your CPI models, or running ads on Google Ads or your Instagram promotions and all, right? With influencers, what you do get is that virality.
Visibility, yeah.
Like for example, earlier there was this game called Flappy Bird. right? That game, when it was launched, it was not downloaded by barely. It was downloaded by barely about 100, 200 people for almost a year. It was not popular at all. And then suddenly PewDiePie, who is the biggest, one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, he made a video which was titled "Do Not Play This Game," and the thumbnail was Flappy Bird, and it was about Flappy Bird. And eventually, overnight, that game became successful, so successful that it was earning about $50,000 a day at its peak. So influencer marketing is a one-off thing that will get you that virality, but at the core, it is your game that needs to hook the audience.
If you want some visibility for your game, it's better to work with influencer. But then if you want conversion, traditional advertising helps more.
That's correct.
And you spoke about Chat GPT, and kids of today have so many advantages in AI, AR, VR. All of this is so rapidly evolving. But how do you think gaming professionals today can stay relevant in this era of technology, and they can keep their skills sharp?
I think it's just to keep themselves updated with whatever new technology is out there and not feel intimidated by it, because when these AI tools started popping up and suddenly we had image generation and video generation capabilities, a lot of artists got scared that and even programmers for that matter, because nowadays there are softwares that help you write code as well. So but the only factor over here is, while it's an enabler, it can't do everything by itself, right? So it's very much like, I heard this story that few hundreds of years ago or few decades ago, there was a job of a guy who used to just ring doorbells in the morning as an alarm clock, which got replaced by a rooster, which got replaced by a clock, which then got replaced by a mobile phone. And then, of course, we used to do calculations on hand, and that got replaced by a calculator. So these AI tools are just tools. They help you speed up your work, nothing else. And there's nothing to be scared about with these, because at the end of the day, you have to be sitting there and do the job, right? And there's this one quote that I read somewhere was, AI is not going to replace your job, but AI will replace 10 other people with a person who can use AI effectively.
Oh, yeah, even I read this somewhere. Yes, I remember. So when you were developing Mumbai Gullies, or you've seen so many other games, do you think there's any secret that will make the player hook to the game?
That is always the challenging part, right? And that is something that game designers always struggle with, which is to get that one single core mechanic right. See, if you observe any game out there, it is just one small single piece of activity that you like to do over and over again. Like, for example, if someone likes to play Subway Surfers, it's just swiping left, right, that character jumping and dodging the trains and collecting. That's the entire game. There's nothing new that happens.
But you still like doing it.
You still like doing it. Ludo, for that matter, it's just you circling around that board and then trying to go inside the home first. Counter-Strike, it's just teams competing with each other, shooting each other, and that's it. So figuring out that one core mechanic, that is the most difficult aspect. And I don't think anyone has figured out that secret sauce, because it is very much subjective. Like, for example, something that you like, I might not like, or vice versa. And no matter how good of a game you make, there will always be that one person who will give that 1-star rating. So I think that secret formula is something that you will develop as you work towards it, but there's no short way that if I do 2 plus 2, then that will always become 4.
I've seen so many people getting addicted to Candy Crush.
I'm not talking about 2 plus 2 always becomes 4 from a different perspective. 2 plus 2 is always 4, but that's just the philosophy.
So when we talk about players getting hooked to games for years, I've seen a lot of people getting hooked to Candy Crush. Like, they're doing this for their whole day. What do you think was there in that game that made people so addicted to it?
So I've read a few articles wherein it was mentioned that King.com, the developer of the game, had actually hired psychologists to understand how human psychology works, and they actually designed the entire game in such a way that you get rewarded at every level, and that gets you hooked onto the game. And this is very common practice in much of the popular games, is that they get you hooked onto the game in the first few stages, right? So there's that excitement curve actually in games wherein you hook the player very early on, so that eventually once they reach a particular stage, they're like, okay, I have invested my time so much, might as well give it another shot, and that's how they get you hooked. So that is the same with Candy Crush. With Candy Crush, it is seemingly endless levels, and some levels that are so frustrating that you can't even complete them on your 10th, 15th, 20th try. But those sounds, those visual effects, those pop-ups, that is what keep you hooked, and that is what the research that they've put into it.
Understood. So, I have two parts of this question. You might be working with some gaming influencer, and you might also be working with game developers or game designers who you're hiring for your organization. So, what skills do you look in first in gaming influencers and then in the people that you're planning to hire? So, people who are planning to get into this industry, young professionals, what skills should they have to just make their mark in the industry?
See, for influencers, it depends on which geography we are targeting. So let's say, for example, if we want to make the game popular in the US market, then we will look for influencers in the US market. Now, the gray area over here is you don't really have a tab on the conversions. So that's always a arrow in the dark, right? So we prefer to work with a couple of media agencies who are good at this part. They scout out influencers for you, and that is their full-time job. So we don't have to figure out or worry about which influencers we will get. We get recommended that, hey, this is a list of influencers. Do you want to contact this person or that person, right? That's one. Second part of your question is about the talent that we want to hire. So the talent depends on firstly our requirement, because this gets started out when we start making the game, right? And then how effectively they can use that specific tool. So typically what we do is when we interview people, we first do a small screening round, and then we give them a task. We give them a task and a deadline. If they're able to achieve that task within that deadline, then they are a good fit for us. Additionally, we might also sometimes give a task that is not possible to do, right? So we also want to hear from the candidate that, okay, this is something that you gave and it is not possible. So thereby we understand that, okay, the person, they've tried enough, and finally they've concluded, because there's no possible way that you can do it. And somehow if you are able to do it, then you're a wizard. And then we know that we definitely have to hire you.
Yes. So, any soft skills that you think are really important?
Yeah, communication skills. Communication skills are so underrated, because when you hire someone, they are actually going to work in a team, and talking to each other is extremely important. Especially now in a culture where things are moving remote, people don't want to come back to office. So in these cases, definitely if someone, and communication does not mean that speaking well in English. It can be that you can speak in Hindi, but how effectively are you able to address a problem or a solution to a problem that is being asked from you, or you are asking someone. So communication skill is definitely a skill that one must possess.
That's very important.
Yeah.
And when we talk about gamers or these influencers, a lot of them are also turning into entrepreneurs now. Some are having their own merch lines, some are starting their own brands, some are starting their own studios. So is there any advice that you would like to give to gamers turning into entrepreneurs?
Oh, I think this is the best time of their lives. I think nowadays, because of access to virtually free internet, it's not completely free, but virtually free internet, people having data packs that are extremely cheap, right? These gamers and influencers have a lot of attention towards them, and they can say the most stupidest line and get viral for it. So, there was this statement by Shah Rukh Khan. He said that he was the last of the stars, right? He was right, because now everyone is a star. Like everyone, he was the last of the superstars, but now everyone is a star. Someone like Carrie Minati, who started out from his room with that small video setup and all, right? He now, actually meeting with Mr. Beast and all these other influencers, right? That is a big thing. And almost anyone and everyone who can put their time and effort to it can achieve that.
Yes, definitely. Also, there are a lot of people, a lot of kids who want to get into this industry. Yeah. So what's that one piece of Ungyaan that you would like to give to them, which would be useful for them?
So I think it's to just have a lot of patience, because it's probably more than a decade journey, right? A lot of people want to get their games right in the first game that they launch, but that's not true. Like even these bigger games that we've seen are a journey of multiple decades. GTA 5 or GTA 6 is where it is because of that 30-year-old journey. So it takes time, and it might so happen that you might fail on your first game. It might so happen you fail on your 9th, 10th, 13th game, or even 51st game. But maybe your 52nd game, as was Rovio's Angry Birds, can become a success.
Yeah, so it's a little difficult to see quick results in this
Yeah,
industry.
yeah, yeah.
So you have to be patient and just
Yeah.
keep going.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Now, moving on to the next segment of this podcast, it's called Ungyaan Shots. I'll be asking you some questions, but you have to be really fast in
Yeah.
giving your answers. You won't get a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, let's go.
Sure.
Which character in gaming would you like to be best buddies with?
Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2.
All right. What's the most inspiring book or movie you've ever come across?
How to Win at the Sport of Business by Mark Cuban.
Okay. And movie?
Movie, anything that has Shah Rukh Khan in it.
Really? Oh,
Any and every.
you're a Shah Rukh Khan fan. Do you play board games?
Not a lot, but recently dabbled into Catan and likes.
It's a very interesting game. So yeah, I wanted to ask you, which is your favorite board game?
Catan recently.
Catan?
Yeah.
All right. If you could jump into any video game or animation and live there for a week, which one would it be?
It's a very difficult question, but maybe Elder Scrolls 5 and GTA 5.
Okay, interesting. What's your workday superpower? Any accessory or habit that you think you just cannot live without?
Google Calendar. Everything is on there, and just I have
Super
to follow
important.
that. Yeah.
What's the most underrated video game of all time in your opinion?
There's this game called Undertale. I feel it's underrated because it's not high on graphics. It's a very simple game, and that's one. And second underrated game that I would want to give a shout out from India is this game called Kamla. It's a Indian horror game. It's about exorcism.
Okay. Have you played that game?
Yeah, I have. And I know the developer as well. So
Okay.
I played it with him actually.
All right. What's the one cheat code or hack you wish existed in real life for you?
Oh, there's this cheat code from San Andreas, HESOYAM. It gives you full health, full armor, and $250,000 in cash.
Oh, we all wish we had that.
Yeah.
Next is, who's your favorite gaming influencer right now?
It has to be Carrie Minati because he's very entertaining and he's got some really good,
So
good
witty
personality.
also.
Yeah.
In your experience, what's the secret sauce behind a game's ability to keep players engaged for years?
It's that core mechanic, one activity that you like to do over and over again.
Okay. Last one. What's the one thing about gaming that non-gamers just don't understand?
It takes time, and the bigger the game is, the longer time it takes. Primarily because it's just a lot of hard work that goes into picture.
So that was all for this podcast. It was so lovely speaking to you, and there were so many insights that I personally got, and I'm sure our viewers will also learn a lot from this.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here,
Thank you
giving
so
us
much.
your time, and I wish a 100-fold success to your organization. And we're all waiting for Mumbai Gullies.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Ungyaan podcast by Arena Animation with Nikhil Malankar, CEO of GameEon Studios, as he shares exciting stories from the gaming world. Catch the episode on our YouTube channel or stream it on Spotify or your favorite podcast app.